You're listening to the Mindset School Podcast, episode 42. Hey, friends, welcome to the Mindset School Podcast with Peggy Easterling, where we learn to smile authentically from the inside out. I can't wait to introduce you today to Jason Clausen. He is a compassionate and highly experienced clinical therapist. He has an incredible background in guiding individuals toward overcoming grief and trauma. But Jason brings a unique perspective to this healing process. He intimately understands the power of resilience and the vital role that faith plays in navigating life challenges. Jason went through a tragic loss, and during this loss, he found power in giving back as a core part of the healing journey. Join us as we delve in to Jason's inspiring story and discover the incredible power of service in finding healing and hope. Hi, Jason. It's so nice to have you here. I've been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Such a pleasure. And I'm so blessed to be here.
Awesome. Jason, tell us just a little bit about yourself today.
I was born and raised in Utah with a family of 7 kids. So learned how to battle for adversity and resilience through a family that was loving and Christian based, but obviously we had to grow through that. But over the years, I'm a clinical therapist, and I've been doing that for 16 years and love doing it. And I believe I didn't seek out a therapy. I believe my experiences and what God had in store for me led me to helping people. And that's what I get to do. And that's what I'm blessed to do on a regular basis.
I love it when I get to have people who have that experience in my space. I use the word trauma whenever I talk about my work, and it scares some people at first because they think, oh, she's digging into that stuff. And that's really not what a life coach should do. But what I do is really, I go from that zero zone and we look forward. And so people who've gone through counseling and they're still looking backwards, they love to work with me. So I love to get more counselors and people that are professionals in my network, because I do have to refer people to professionals at times. And so, Jason, it's great to be introduced to you and have you as a resource for future to connect people with. So I'm grateful that my listeners are going to get to know you today.
Awesome. And I'm here to help. And that is what we need to do as we go through hard events. We just give back and we pay it forward by helping people.
So, Jason, I'm so excited that you're sharing your personal journey today. Start from the beginning, because I know you have an amazing overcoming story and you give God glory. Do you mind sharing from the beginning and starting there and telling us a little bit about your life and how God's brought you through?
I do. And that's absolutely true, as God has led me through what I had to go through. And up until, and where I start my story is, I believe my life was going as good as it ever has been in my life, where my wife was just lost 100 pounds and the light was coming back on as she has gone through her personal journey of weight loss, and my kids were thriving in school and they're in sports, and I was a clinical director just helping so many people, and we're involved in the community and the church, and we're like, man, this is so awesome. We're building a house, and we're like, this is what life is about, and this is what we could look forward to. Unfortunately, that didn't last too long. I remember my wife coming to me, and she had a lump in her stomach, and she said, Jason, I don't know what this is. Can you feel this? And we discovered a lump that didn't have a lot of answers to it. So we went to the doctors. And I remember talking to my wife and saying, let's hurry up, figure this out, because we got to get back to our life we were living. It's like, okay, this is just a speed bump, so let's go forward. But we didn't get immediate answers. And as we began to pray and and help others and just can keep doing what we were doing. We're hoping that God would help us through this and find a path that would be something that would help us through the process. So we found through the trials and tests, we found ourselves at the hospital doing exploratory surgery because nothing that we went through or the doctors we talked to pointed to anything that was significantly and going on. So we didn't have a lot of answers. So you can imagine I'm sitting in the waiting room. My wife's parents, my sister, and my wife's best friend were on pins and needles waiting for the doctor to come in and give us this great news of what's going on. Remember the door coming. I remember her looking at me, and I still feel it today. It's like, Jason, I'm so sorry, but your wife has stage 4 colon cancer. And I remember that just hitting me like a ton of bricks. And I don't think anything that we can do in life can prepare for that. And it was just something that I will never forget. That point is just frozen in my head because that was a life-altering event when I was delivered that news. And I just remember all the heaviness that came with that and thinking, how am I going to get through this? But I was like, I can do this. I can do this with God, and we're good people. We're doing good. So God's going to help us through this. And I remember shortly after that, my wife was in recovery room, and the doctor came in and talked to my wife and told her, and we just started crying, and it just didn't seem fair. How could some people that were doing such good have such hard moments in their life? And it didn't feel fair. And as the doctor was walking down the hallway, I just said, I need some answers. So I ran after the doctor, and I was just trying to get any kind of answers that I needed to help me start walking this journey or this life-altering event. And I was just like, what can we do? Like, what is the treatment options? How long is she going to live? And she settled me down. She looked me in the eyes and she said, you know what, Jason? Cancer has a way of enhancing your life.
Mm.
And at that point, Peggy, like, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted my old life because it was good. And I think when we go through these events, it's like, I want my old life back because that's so good. And it doesn't seem fair that things happen to us or people's choices affect us or trials just come upon it. It just doesn't feel fair. And that stung. And I remember turning around and walking back to my wife's room. And again, the heaviness of I'm the provider, I'm the father, I gotta be the strong one. And I'm getting emotional to talk about this because how heavy it was, how hard it was to be someone that everybody had to look to because they needed someone strong. They needed someone to take care of my wife and my kids, and people needed someone there, and they don't realize how hard it is. I put on a mask to protect my emotions, and I held on to them, and I did that for a long, long time. And it was just, as you can see, it still brings up so much emotions to wear those heavy masks and pretend like nothing is wrong or feel like I can't share because there's so much going on and nobody's going to listen or nobody's going to listen to my heart. And that was the heaviness that I carried for a long, long time.
Wow. As you're sharing, my own story comes up. I also lost a parent to cancer, and my dad was 39 when he passed of cancer. I was a 16-year-old girl, and I never really stopped long enough to really think of that sentence going through my mom's head that day when she got the news of just having to be the provider and the weight of that news coming. Of course, as a 16-year-old child, I'm old enough to think about the financial provisions, but all of the weight in that moment
being on my mom's shoulder. I can't imagine what that felt like because that wasn't the weight that I bore in that moment.
No.
It was different. It was unique. Oh, Jason, you're there and you've got all of that weight and you're feeling it in that heaviness and in that moment. What did you do next? What did you do in that
I
moment?
mean, I did the best I could. We eventually moved into my parents' house. We had to say goodbye to our house that we were building, and we moved into my parents' house. But I just remember that I would lay on the couch. I'd put everybody to bed, take care of their needs, and I'd just lay on the couch and I'd scroll through social media. And I would just, that's where I could give myself permission to take off my mask, lay it on the coffee table, and just cry myself to sleep because I was like, nobody's around. And I could talk to God. But at that time, I was angry and upset about my situation, and my heart was closed. And the way I asked and the way I prayed to God was not able to open my heart. I asked, "Why'd you do this? Why why am I going through this? I'm doing so much good, and why do we have to go through this? My kids are young, my wife is young." Like I was just like, how could you? I was looking for answers, but I wasn't going through the right way. So I did the best I could, and we were giving 2 to 3 years to battle cancer. And every time we'd go back for like an update, nothing changed. We did everything that we were told to do. We did everything we could on a spiritual side to make it right, and nothing changed. And that didn't seem fair as well. We didn't even get any hope. So as we battled it for 9 months, unfortunately, my wife passed away, and we said goodbye at 9 months after we got the diagnosis. So it was heart wrenching. And again, the heaviness, the weight. Again, anybody that's listening, I want you to listen to this because this is helpful. Funerals are great because people rally around you. But here's the important part is when the funeral's all done, the heaviness and the loneliness really sinks in to the people that have experienced loss. That's the best time to go check on them, be with them, just sit there, just listen to what they need, because those are the most loneliest times of my life, and they are so painful.
Mm, wow. I'm thinking like in that moment, you're sitting there and you also are a mental health expert. And the weight of thinking, I'm supposed to have all of the answers for mental health. How did that play into that season where you feel isolated and alone because of the situation, but I'm sure
Yeah.
your own thoughts were isolating you because you showed up as someone that you're expected to have answers for mental health. What was that play like?
Yeah, Peggy, you nailed it. It's like I'm someone that has been trained and been successful with helping people, but in that very moment, I can't help people. Like I've helped people with trauma and addiction and grief, and I'm sitting here just suffering. Like I can't figure this out on my own. I can't look in the mirror and just try to therapize myself. I felt like stuck. And then I have two boys that I'm trying to take care of, and they're grieving, and it's just like, how do I get through this? The unfortunate part was my boss calls me and say, "Jason, we're drowning at work. We need you back to work." So you can imagine this. So I'm like, I guess I got to go back, and this isn't the right thing to do for anybody listening. You need time to process and agree. But I went back 9 days later, and I try to help and try to heal that grieving by helping people and working and trying to get a break. But that only lasted, I mean, the buildup lasted for probably about 9 months. And my son, I'd come up from work, he'd look at me, Peggy, and say, "Dad, you come home angry every day." And I'm just like, I'm not hiding anymore. Like it's out there. Like people can see how much pain I'm going through. And I just realized I need to change. I need to do something different. And that was the scary part where you're going through this hard moment of life and you need to do something, but you don't know what to do. And just sitting there going, where do I turn? And I remember being at work and just the heaviness. And I was like, I'm going to take a lunch break. I ended up, ironically, at a church, pulling out my phone and texting about 15 of my closest friends, family, people in my neighborhood and church. And I said, I'm not doing good. I'm just being honest, but I would love if you came over to my house so I could open up and I could tell you how I'm feeling. And for a guy to do that, it's like, wow, this is crazy. But I did that. And then I remember like sitting at my house going, is this going to work? I was putting a lot of faith in the situation. And all of a sudden I got this knock on the door and everybody just started pouring in. And everybody sat in this room and just listened as I took off my mask and I cried and I just said, this is so heavy. But they sat there and they just cared for me. And this is what I call my healing team, where people listen. You could be authentic and real and vulnerable, and people don't judge. And in those moments, you give people permission to come into your circle and help you. Many times as you go through these events and you put on a mask and you don't allow your true self to come out, people don't think you're okay. And people don't know what to say or how to support you because of the way you're presenting. But when I became vulnerable, vulnerability invited vulnerability with others, and it allowed me to start getting help. And that was a shift and a turning point into my grieving process that I feel like everybody should have in their turning things around, because we need that moment where we're just authentic and real about our situation and allow people to rally around you and help.
So good. You know, that love that we want from people and we need from others, they're loving someone who's phony when we don't show them the real. And to truly show them, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. They can't help you where you're at if we won't show them where we're at. That is so good, Jason. When I heard about your story initially, you said you threw out a Hail Mary, and I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan because I'm a Texas girl. And so Hail Mary is never had a better meaning than when you sent that text. In that moment, was it out of sheer desperation? What was going on in your mind in that moment? Were you feeling led by God? Where were you when that happened?
I was probably a couple nights before, I just started calling a couple of my friends, and I reached out to a friend that I worked with in recovery. And I think this is at one of those God moments of what she told me, because when I taught people in recovery, we taught them about creating a recovery team. Similar, where you find people, your code word, and you find people that can support you and taking that pressure off. And she said, Jason, you teach about recovery teams. Why don't you do a grief team or a healing team? Why don't you try that? And I felt like I taught it, but to really actually implement it and do it is another thing. But when I was in those moments, what my friend told me really inspired me to reach out. And I feel like that was those God moments where it inspired her to be able to tell me what I needed. And sometimes when our heart is closed off, God uses other people to tell you what you need because your heart is so closed. And he used that moment to open up my heart. And then he could use the Holy Spirit to tell me what I needed at that point moving forward. But up until that point, he needed other people to help me what I could do for myself.
So good. We definitely heal in community. Like we heal in community with other people, and that being able to speak into your life. I say it like this. I often have a tag sticking out on the back of my shirt, and I don't know that my tag's sticking out until someone comes and helps me with that tag out. And so even though I'm a coach, I need a coach. I have a counselor and a coach. I need both in my life right now,
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
knowing the tools that I need, and knowing some tools and how to take thoughts captive and some steps to go through, and been through some recovery programs and have learned some tools. I still need help because sometimes I can't see the things that I need to see, even though they're so obvious to other people. And when we like let our guard down just enough to let someone speak into our life, it peels back some layers
Yeah.
where God needs in that space. So
I,
good.
I often say the opposite of grief, addiction, sin, loneliness, trauma is connection. That's how we heal. That's how we heal. I've seen it over and over in recovery groups and individual therapy and in my own life, people that truly connect and reach out. And I think this is like finding your higher power or finding God to involve you in your life. That's where you're going to heal. Like, you can't wait out grief. You can't wait this out yourself. You're not that strong, but God is. And with his influence, you can find ways to get happier and healthier.
Yes. So good. And connection, in that healing space that we find, it's messy.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
messy. It's not always perfection. It's not always connecting with others. The reason that we sometimes isolate is because of some connections we've had in our past. And that's exactly what Satan wants to use to lie
Yeah.
to us, to keep us in isolation. But the beautiful thing is, when we stop listening to Satan's lies and make those connections that God has ordained for our lives, it's in those spaces that we truly, genuinely let Jesus in, and he heals our heart.
Yeah. I think along this process, I began to pray differently. Remember how I was saying why? My prayers turned into, who do I need to connect with? What do I need to do? How can I find happiness today? And by doing that, I could be guided to where God needed me to go. And that's the shift. And that opened my heart up and God to work together to find the people, the places, the situations to help me become happy.
It's beyond happiness. It's really joy. It's really joy. And it's so genuine because you have hope in Christ that that hope in Christ, nothing else can truly take it away. If it's truly the joy that you lean on, it can still be present in the midst of the deepest grief. It can be there to comfort you.
Yeah.
Because life isn't always happy. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, and we can't keep that from happening. And so I think today we have some happy seekers. People think that we can make every day happy and that's a way to be possible. That's not the truth. We are always going to have circumstances in our life that we have good days and bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started having more and more good days in your life and more happy days. Tell me about that journey toward that.
I guess I had a choice, right? Is either I can sit in my grief, or I can choose and start focusing on how to find the happiness. And by including God, that's what he allowed us to do. So shortly after that healing team that I created, I felt inspired to step away from therapy, and because my boys needed a dad. And so my focus was to reconnect with them and make some lasting memories, because what we were living off of was sad and unsustainable memories. So we needed to create different ones because that could help sustain our happiness. it's not that we weren't forgetting our wife. We just needed to create some own memories of my own. So I remember sitting down at the kitchen table and saying, boys, I'm taking the summer off and we're going to create a bucket list of things we want to work on. So we made this bucket list together and how we can connect and how we can invite people in and do things in my wife's honor. And one of the greatest things on there was create a lemonade stand. And what we wanted to do is create a lemonade stand. We wanted to raise money to create hope kits to deliver to people that were struggling. And during this time, I was studying and praying this in the scriptures. And I remember reading about when Christ was going through like his hardest moments of his life, and the Roman soldiers came to take him away. Peter stepped up and cut off the Roman soldier's ear. And what did Christ do? Like in one of the worst moments of his life, people are betraying him and people are coming to take his life. Like he heals him. And I was thinking like, okay, there's something to that. So in our darkest moments of me and my boys, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to serve and we wanted to help others. So we set up this lemonade stand. We get done after a couple hours. I'm starting to count the money and I have tears just rolling down my face because we raised $1,500. And my boy goes, wow, we're rich, Dad. And I go, no, we can make more kits for people. So instead of creating 2, we created 25. And then we put it out on Facebook. Hey, we want to deliver these hope kits to people that are going through cancer treatment, that have lost a loved one. And people rallied around us and we went and delivered them. And we sat in their emotions. We said, this sucks. We gave them hugs. My kids were helping their kids. And it was such a beautiful spiritual moment, our first time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this the rest of my life. This is God's work. This is how we help people. And it gave me and my boys an emotional timeout from what I was feeling. And that felt so good because for so long, I'm just like replaying and feeling this. But when I was serving another person, I felt like good and happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. Like I want this feeling back. So we've been on this mission of helping people with these kits. And through the process, there was a lady in Virginia that said, I want a hope kit. And I was like, I don't know how to get you one, but we were led to create these boxes, a hope kit, and we shipped it out to someone in Virginia. And this lady was just over the moon that we thought of her. And she's like, this made such a big difference. And a miracle that happened after this, I call it a miracle because my son came up to me after and he says, Dad, I have an idea. I don't know if we want to do this. And I was like, oh, great. He goes, there's a lot of people out there that need hope kits. Can we deliver one to every state in the United States? And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have time for that. But I didn't want to tell him no. Like he's healing. He's catching the vision of feeling good. And God is allowing his heart to be right. So we set this goal of delivering these kits. And last year we delivered the last kit box to the state of Delaware. And now there is this influence, or there's a box in all 50 states of the United States that are able to have some kind of hope. And it just warms my heart that was God speaking to my kid, and it allowed a miracle to happen. And we are spreading hope and giving people joy again. And it is such an incredible feeling.
Oh my goodness. You're in your darkest moment, yet you made that decision to go and spend the time with your boys. That's how it started. It was just, I got to spend some time with my boys. I've got to just step away. And in your decision to step away from your work of helping others, you stepped away, got space in your life, You were being intentional. I got to be a dad. I got to just let God just give us
Yeah.
some space. And in that space, God brought not just this for your life, but how did y'all did you have a map on the wall? How did you keep up with all of the states of the US?
Yeah.
What was that celebration when you checked off that last box? What did
It
that
was
look
it was just like a spreadsheet, like, okay, who do we need to reach out to? Or like, we'd reach out on Facebook. Does anybody know anybody in Maine? I don't know anybody. Like, and then people just rallied around us and just followed this journey. And such a pleasure to just be able to accomplish what my son wanted, and I think what God wanted. So, and what's amazing is one of those boxes that we delivered this about 6 months ago, one of the ladies reached back out to me, and I think this is what can happen is she reached out to me and she said, Jason, I'm so grateful that you did this and you sent me a box. She goes, since I received your box, it meant so much to me. I've started making these bags that I begin to deliver to people that were going through hard moments. And she says, to this day, I've delivered over 500 bags to people. And I read this and I just started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the ripple effect. Just continue to help and continue God's work. And there's a lot of those different stories that we get to experience, but we followed what God wants us to do. And this is where it comes full circle, Peggy. It's like, remember what the doctor said to me in the hospital. Cancer. And I would replace, for anybody listen, sin, trauma, addiction, depression has a way of enhancing your life. But you have to allow it to happen and transform you. Because if you don't, you'll just silently suffer, and it will be a painful, slow death with all the pain that you just hold on to.
Oh, good. The redeeming power of God. He is a redeemer. And
Yeah.
he can't show us that depth of his redemption without our surrender to whatever we're walking through, surrendering it to him. That is so good, Jason. Oh my goodness. Wow. So you've delivered a kit to every state in the United States. So what's next?
We want people to know about the Hope Kit all over the world. I know that sounds ambitious, but right. I mean, shortly after that, we delivered one in Australia, one in the UK, one to Canada. I go back to when I was feeling that pain and that loneliness. I just don't want people to feel that and experience that. So if there's a resource or a tool that can get them unstuck and help them get out of that space, that's what I want. And if they get unstuck, then they can find God and they can involve God in their life more often. And I'm just a vehicle, and I just want people to know there is hope. There's a way when you go through these life altering events, and Peggy, you can testify this from what you've been through, is there's hope. But we need to involve God and good things into our lives to bring the hope. And I just, my message is, let's do this. Let's get the word out. Let's find more people that we can help find hope and happiness with.
Yeah. I love your passion. Something that was meant or seemed like the darkest moment, and God somehow has used it to not just draw you closer to your boys and connect, but good has come in your life.
Yeah.
And you're able to make those ripples happen by just sharing that love with the other people, sharing the love that's just radiating from your heart, that you never want anyone to be that dark and in that darkness.
Yeah. Yep. It's hard. It sucks and it's awful. And you're right. I don't want people to experience that.
Yeah. I actually have one right here in my cart because I have some I have the Hope Kit in a cart right now. I haven't checked out yet because I started it before I started recording. But I have some friends that need this. They are in a dark space in their own lives right now. They've had some loss recently and they need some hope. So I'm going to send some hope their way
Awesome.
today. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And let me know if they need to talk to me or to support them. I'm happy to do what I need to do.
Yeah. So good. Jason, so there's going to be people that listen and they want to connect with you and they want a hope kit and they want to send some hope and make some ripples themselves. And your story is going to inspire them to make some ripples in their own life. Maybe they've got 500 things that they're going to send out in their own life because your story is going to inspire them. If they want to connect with you, how do they do that?
I think the best way, obviously, you can send me an email. I'm open to sending out my email and hearing your personal stories or joining together. It's jason@hopekit.com. Our website is hopekit.com. You can go on and you can find the kit that works for you. We only talked about the grief kit, but also there's one that's diagnosed with cancer. And there's also a mental health one there. If you're struggling with mental health, we have a solution. We want to be the one that gives people hope. And then you can follow us on social media, the Hope Kit, Instagram and Facebook, and follow our journey. Or let's be Facebook friends. Jason Clausen, like, I have nothing to hide. Like, I need people in my life that are followers of Christ that want to do the right thing. And let's build this amazing community that is unstoppable. And we can do so much when we network and we connect with people. Let's do this. Let's join Peggy and her team and whoever wants to be involved. Let's do this together. There's a bigger mission. People need us and people need our hearts to be able to share hope.
So good. It's just God and how he's combining these people with passion for him and just allowing us to support each other along our journeys. And when we do that, I tell you what, it's combining ripples. And when we combine those ripples, it's making waves because even though I'm right now a small business, God's put big vision in my heart, just like you, Jason. And I know God's going to take these kids, these hope kids, and they're going to impact lives. And they're going to change lives because of the message that's there and the products that serve people. Tell me a little bit about the products and the message and what if someone gets a Hope Kit, what's inside?
Yeah. Most of the kits, you'll get it. You'll have cookies because that food gives us comfort. And most of them have blankets in them. And then they have a journal's worth of journal promptings that will help you get through that year of death and the year anniversary. And then there's some comfy socks, fuzzy socks in there. And then we've written our own book, children's book. It's called Always With You. That helps you remind of your loved one and helps you to honor them in a special and a unique way. And it comes with a keychain with an angel. Actually, I have one right here. Here's a little angel keychain that comes with it. And then one of my favorite things in there is we created these support cards. And I think this is like the cherry on top of the Hope Kit. These support cards are a deck of cards that have promptings of what to say to someone that's grieving. So it's your cue cards that you can text or you can say the right thing. Because when we go through these events, a lot of people don't know what to say. They're hesitant to say something, or they'll say the wrong thing, or then they'll disappear. So we created these deck of cards. So let's say someone passes away, I get a kit, I hand these decks to my community, my support, and they're talking and they're texting me and they're supporting me the right way. And it's just so awesome. And these are actually, I reached out to over 200 widows and people that have lost loved ones. And these are the questions that they got asked that warmed their heart. And we just put them all together. And now they're all in these boxes, creating these communities of people to help us heal.
Oh, wow. I love that you reached out to people to gather that. I've been through grief, I've been through things, but sometimes it's hard for
Mhm.
me to even form the right words to say in the moment. So having that as a resource, I'm sure that that's useful for
Yeah.
anyone looking to support a friend in a
Mm.
beautiful, wonderful way. Awesome. So you've got these hope kits you are supporting. Tell me right now, what would you say to someone who is in that space and they are that person that's grieving and they hear this today and they don't have that community and that team around them? And maybe they don't have someone to reach out to right now. What would you say to that person?
I hope that people have people. That's the sad part. But my encouragement is start with one person, and maybe that's starting with God and your ability to open up and connect with Him. God will know your heart, and God will lead you to someone that will help you. And being able to find the right people, I think, is so important to open up, because what you don't want is open up your heart and someone says, "Oh, that sucks. Hang in there." And then your heart closes back up and you're like, "That was uncomfortable." But be selective about who you open up to and finding the right people. And God will tell you who's there and who you can begin. But start with one and then start with another person. Start with God and then connect with someone like a pastor or someone that is in your community that you respect. Open up, and maybe you'll open up a little bit more to them, but then start getting more people to open up to and feeling comfortable with, and then your heart will start to heal. And that it just one day at a time, and finding those connections can be so healing. And maybe you go do some service and God connects you with someone that is looking to help someone. So include God so He can direct you where you need to be.
Mm, such great advice. It starts with one. It starts with connecting with the one, but finding one person. And there's always one person out there. There really
Uh-huh.
is. We just have to be willing to open up and be
Mhm.
willing to go and find them.
Yep.
So good. Awesome. Jason, it's been such an honor to hear your story. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with our listeners today, that maybe some advice or something that about your story that you want to share a piece of?
I mean, God's still helping me with miracles, and I'm going to say every day is not easy for me. I think that I just be pretty transparent about there's some hard days, but I most of the days I include God and people that I built a community that is really supportive. But one of my last miracles that I've been working on is God knows my heart, and so He allowed me and my wife that we met over a year and a half ago to come together. And she has her own story where she lost her husband to cancer, but it brought us together, be able to be able to help people, teach, and connect on a deeper level. And that's what we get to do. And that's where we feel that's part of our mission. And I think if that happened, I think we would be really helpful. But God knows us, and He continues to put things in our path that maybe we're not expecting. And lastly, Kirsten, when she married Cody, she wasn't able to have kids of her own. She was told by doctors she would never have kids. And through God's grace and miracle, He allowed us to get pregnant. And we had a miracle baby named Macy that has come to our family and has healed our hearts. And I don't think we anticipated having a baby would heal our hearts, but God knew what He was doing to be able to allow us to have that miracle. And God continues to help us and bring light to our journeys, but we need to continue to be open to Him and follow what He has in store for us.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is so amazing. A little bundle of joy to bring joy to your life.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. How long have you been married now, Jason?
In January, it'll be 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And Macy will be 1 in December. So she was waiting to come to our family. And what's beautiful and amazing is we feel like we'll feel like there's like influence from Cody, from Kirsten's husband, or from Valerie, like influence as she's come to our family. It's like we are able to experience our spouses through her. And it's just so amazing. Like we'll have moments where like, oh, that is something Cody would do, or that's something Valerie would do. And it keeps the memory of our spouses alive, and we continue to honor them, and we continue to celebrate life.
Mm. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love hearing overcoming stories, and they're a journey. They don't end. We keep going on this journey, and it's never perfect. It's always got good days and bad days.
Yep.
But when we really seek God, the joy that's there in Him and the things that He brings to our life, it's amazing. It's amazing what we focus on and the things that we can see when we really open our eyes to the beauty that's around us. Jason, thank you for sharing your story. I loved hearing your story, and I love how God's redeemed your life. And I love what He's doing in your family, even still today. I can't wait to check out my Hope Kit, and I promise you'll see my name come around. I usually send flowers, but man, I think this is a better way. I think this is much longer than a flowers in a
Got
moment.
it.
And it's a gift that keeps giving. I mean, to hand out those things to a friend and to have that as a tool and a resource that keeps comforting over and over in someone's life. How much more significant to spend even less money. I'm looking at your prices. I'm like, I spend more than this on flowers. And so this is
Got it.
this is definitely what I'm going to utilize in the future. And
Awesome.
I'm excited to share this with others as well and continue to share this in the future. So,
Awesome.
Jason, thank you for sharing this with us. I hope you guys, if you're listening and someone who is sitting at home and they're grieving, maybe it's been some years have passed, but they're still grieving and they need some hope in their lives, go find Jason. I will have his information in the show notes. Go get your Hope Kit. Send some hope today. Share some love through some hope. It's got all this hope and how we can connect with others. You've got the book, you've got who doesn't love cookies? And you've got other things in there. So go get your Hope Kit, send it to someone you love and you care about who needs some hope in their life. Keep this in mind in the future. And if you need any information on if you need to connect with God, if you need some hope in your life and you don't have any friends in your life, you don't know how to connect with God or what that looks like, and you've never done that before, if you're listening today, I hope that you will reach out to Jason or myself, and we would love to connect you with resources on how to connect with God and what that can look like in the future. So, y'all, I am so glad to listen to Jason's story today. I'm so glad that he shared with us some hope and his Hope Kits, his beautiful story of his family and how they've overcome so much and God's redeeming their story, even in the laughter that they're sharing with this new baby girl in their lives. Thanks for listening today.
As always, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. If you like what you heard, I'd love to know. Leave us a review and share with a friend that could use an overcoming story so they can move closer to their purpose for their lives by renewing their mind the way God intended. Friends, thank you for listening. You're now done with step 1 of growing together at the Mindset School. Head over to themindsetschool.net and grab my free download where I share 5 tips when you can't hold it together anymore and continue your journey to smiling authentically from the inside out.